All right, go ahead.
Okay. The July 25th, 2025 Oregon State Lottery Commission meeting is now in session. It is noted for the record that commissioners are attending this meeting via the web, and a quorum of commissioners is present for today's meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Conrad?
Here.
Commissioner Geller?
Here.
Commissioner Weller?
Here.
Chair Ramirez?
Here. Will the clerk please inform the commission of any guests that have joined today's meeting?
Yes, joining us today is Nate Carter from the Department of Justice.
Members of the public had an opportunity to provide written public comment to the commission for this meeting. A full copy of the written comments that were received were provided to the commissioners in advance of the meeting and will be posted on the commission meeting website. Will the clerk please share the public comments that were received for the record?
Yes, we received the following comment from Topher Welsh. I am submitting this comment to raise a serious concern about a misleading advertisement by Jackpocket currently running on TriMet Light Rail for the Oregon Lottery's Ruby Red Sevens Scratch It ticket. The ad states a top prize of $80,000, but the scratch area graphic within the same ad displays a $150,000 prize, an amount that does not exist for this game. I believe this error resulted from Jackpocket mixing up promotional materials between Oregon's Ruby Red Sevens, $80,000 top prize, and Diamond White Sevens, $150,000 top prize games. This suggests inadequate quality control processes for advertising materials involving official Oregon Lottery products. This discrepancy is not just a factual error. From a mental health perspective, it constitutes psychological entrapment. The ad is designed to trigger impulsive behavior by creating a better than expected reward signal, which activates dopamine pathways and can drive action, especially in vulnerable individuals. The placement of the $150,000 prize at the bottom of the scratch area graphic makes it even more insidious, as it may be processed subliminally, bypassing rational scrutiny. This ad likely violates OAR 177-040-0055, which prohibits false or misleading advertising of lottery games. Even if Jackpocket is a third-party courier, they are advertising an official Oregon Lottery product. The fact that they appear to have confused two different Oregon games demonstrates a lack of proper oversight and understanding of the products they're marketing. This is a clear integrity concern and a perfect example of why stronger regulations are needed. Given Jackpocket's business model, it is highly likely this campaign is running statewide, reaching thousands of Oregonians daily. I have already contacted TriMet Intersection, which is the ad agency, Jackpocket, the Oregon Department of Justice Consumer Protection Division, and the Federal Trade Commission. I urge the commission to consider this ad as a case study in the August 20th hearing and to adopt heavy-handed rules against lottery couriers. Commissioners, I followed up with the commenter and encouraged them to submit their comment through the rulemaking public comment process to ensure it is included in the official rulemaking materials, and they confirm that they will do so.
Thank you. I'll hand it over to Director Wells for the director's report.
Thank you, Chair Ramirez. Good morning, commissioners. I would like to start with some follow-up on that public comment that you just heard. So I have reached out to Jackpocket, which is a DraftKings company, regarding this concern. They immediately launched an internal investigation and confirmed this morning that despite their thorough quality controls and legal review, they have confirmed that their ad agency mistakenly used the wrong image in that advertising campaign. They are working to remove the ads as we speak and replace all affected ads, including billboards, with the correct imagery, and expect to have full resolution within the next 2 weeks. Additionally, they promised that they would look to improve their QA process and ensure this does not happen again. If Mr. Welsh is listening, I want to thank him for his sharp eye and bringing this to our attention so we could try to get this resolved as promptly as possible. So moving on, you will see on the agenda that staff will be joining later in today's meeting to provide both a legislative update and a quarterly product performance report. So I'm going to skip those sections and allow staff to address those for me. In some other lottery news, later this summer, a new video lottery terminal, the Sierra 27 from IGT, will begin field trials with our retailers. If those field trials go well, which we expect they will, it will replace our current oxygen terminals this fall. The Sierra 27 features new games, including popular titles from the retired E20 machines, a larger player panel, and even a built-in phone charger, so enhancing both gameplay and convenience for our customers. And some exciting news, this month, the Oregon Lottery received national recognition from the National Council on Problem Gambling by winning in all 4 categories that we entered. These awards celebrate leadership, innovation, and collaboration in responsible and problem gaming efforts. We were honored with the Corporate Social Responsibility Award for our program work, the Public Awareness Award for our Safer Play PSA campaign, the Multicultural Communications Award for our targeted media outreach, and Stacy Shaw, our Senior Product Marketing Manager, was individually honored with the Don Feeney Award for Responsible Gaming Excellence. These honors reflect truly our entire organization's commitment to responsible and problem gambling efforts and the strong partnerships that we've engaged with to make this work possible. So I personally want to congratulate all of our teams and our partners who have worked on these campaigns and continue to set the bar very high nationally when it comes to this type of work. So thank you. Finance update, a draft of the preliminary fiscal year 25 financial statements were included in your meeting materials. The finance team is actively working to finalize the year-end close, and revisions to the statements are expected prior to their presentation for formal approval next month. But you do have the draft there for you to review.
On that, Mike, I have a couple of questions in terms of reading through that information. Should that be brought up now at the next meeting, or should I just submit a memo to you with my questions?
Yeah, I would say being those are a draft, if you have some questions, maybe submitting them so the team could look at those and ensure that they make any corrections for the next meeting.
That's fine.
Right, best.
Thank you.
And I'm going to end today, as usual, with a few winter stories. Wendy R. from North Bend is celebrating a $69,356.50 Keno win. Wendy has been a long-time occasional Keno player since the 80s. She usually plays when she goes out to dinner with her husband. This time, she was at the Black and Blue Bistro in Roseburg. When Wendy scanned the ticket in the app, she had a jackpot win and was holding up her phone to show her husband, and her hand was shaking in excitement so much he had a hard time reading what the win was. Garrett H. of Monmouth loves to go to Jack's Pub for fun with his wife. Over the July 4th holiday weekend, he decided to play Big City 5 Diamonds, and it paid off with a win of $19,201.85. The air conditioning in his car just went out, so Garrett plans to replace it and purchase a new vehicle for himself. He has a teenage daughter at home who will benefit from receiving his old car. And lastly, Eric R. came into Salem office with a $1,403 Keno win, asking if the win was big enough for a big check. Of course, our staff was happy to honor his request, and Eric got a celebratory photo with his big check. After a long hiatus from playing Keno, Eric purchased his ticket at the Dairy Mart in Springfield. And Chair Ramirez, that concludes my report for this month.
Thank you. The minutes of the previous commission meeting have been circulated to the commission in advance of today's meeting. If there are no changes to the minutes, is there a motion to approve?
I'll go. Chair will make the motion. I move the minutes of the Oregon State Lottery Commission meeting held on June 27th, 2025 be approved as final as presented today.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Conrad,
Aye.
Commissioner Geller,
Aye.
Commissioner Weller,
Aye.
Chair Ramirez.
Aye. For the record, the motion has passed. We'll now turn it over to Chris Scarrow. A lot going on the rulemaking side of the house.
I think Matt was next on the agenda for the legislative update.
Oh, you are correct.
But we can switch places, but Matt's remote, so I wanted to make sure he gets his done before he loses cell coverage.
All right, thanks, Chris. Good morning, Chair Ramirez, Commissioners, Director Wells. For the record, my name is Matt Shelby. I am the Senior Manager for Communications and Policy here at the Lottery. And I am here this morning to give a legislative update, a recap of the 2025 session. In your meeting materials, you have a written recap. So I was thinking that this morning I would kind of hit the headlines and be available for some questions if there were any. So overall, we felt like it was a really successful session for Lottery. We had both proactive and responsive meetings with legislators. And really what we heard throughout those conversations was that, folks really trust the Lottery. The relationship between the Lottery and the legislature is better, has really improved in the last few years. And that's evidenced by the fact that we're getting tapped more for information and analysis to help inform those policy decisions. Obviously, we're really clear that we're not driving those policy decisions, but I think we are being looked to more and more as a partner and a good source of information. So I think that's a really good thing for us. Out of the session, two major bills that impact Lottery. Senate Bill 914, a pretty straightforward bill, but it would require us to add some language to our Lottery billboards, directing people to problem gambling prevention and treatment. That bill is forward-looking, so it doesn't require us to go back and change whatever we have out there. So there's no financial impact for us, but it does require us to add some additional language as we start to swap those billboards out across the state. House Bill 3115 is a bit more involved, and really it does two things. It expressly prohibits the sale of a winning lottery ticket, and it allows lottery winners to remain anonymous. Those on its face are two fairly different kind of policy decisions, but that anonymity piece was an amendment that was added along the way. We have groups within Lottery right now that are working to identify any changes that need to be made and implement those changes before those laws go into effect. You're going to hear about some of those changes when Chris goes next on the rulemaking front. But I think the big takeaway is that when we look at the requirements coming out of those bills, we don't see any major roadblocks or challenges implementing them. We feel really good about kind of the timeline and where we are. And I think that we should have no problem, putting everything we need to in place before those laws go into effect. And with that, I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions related to the session that I may be able to answer this morning.
On the House Bill 3115, is there an expectation that the Lottery will enforce that? Or do we just have to have a rule stating that you can't do it?
Chair Ramirez, great question. It's going to be, I think, more of a compliance complaint driven thing. We are taking some proactive steps though, ahead of time. As we've talked about, I think before, we call them discounters. So these pawn shops that are buying tickets at a discounted rate. We know who they are because they show up so often at our player services locations. And we are reaching out proactively to inform them of the law change. And I think, our hope is that just the sheer risk of lottery not paying on a ticket that they have purchased from somebody else should be enough of a deterrent for them to not kind of take that, offer to buy that ticket. We're also amending our claim forms. So there are some areas now, or will be some areas on the claim forms where a person has to attest that they have not bought the ticket from somebody else. And so while I'm not sure that we're going to have, lottery stings out there trying to buy tickets, Mike, you may correct me on that if you want to go that route. But I think more it's going to be a kind of a compliance and complaint driven. If we learn of a transaction, then obviously we then have the ability to not pay.
Thank you.
Got a follow-up question if I can, Matt, and I'm not sure if this will be for you, for Chris, or in the financial conversation later. I'm good with whoever wants to answer. But just curious, what if in the eventuality that lottery does not pay on one of these because of what it is shown to be a discount, what happens to the money and how is that reflected on the financials?
So
because again, go ahead.
I believe, and Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that would show up as unclaimed prizes at the end of the year, and it essentially flows to the state on that line item.
That money then, is it coded differently so that money could be tracked, so that we would know what the financial impact is of this bill in terms of money's not being paid out? Is there going to be a different code or something along those lines, so that next fiscal year you can say, we did this 5 times and this is how much money flowed back to the state because of this?
Commissioner Conrad, I believe that would show up as a problem ticket. And there would be, I'm not sure that the unclaimed prize kind of financial path would be the way to track that, but I believe it would show up as a problem ticket. There'd be a security investigation. So I think in order to get that, it might be a manual process, but I'm sure we could do it. But that's a good question. We can look into that.
And just to let you know where my brain is going, I know it's out of the purview for the commission, but there's some legislative things that I would like to talk about, and I can reach out to you. I just want to make sure that the pathway is right, so that there might be some policy changes. I might reach out to some folks in the legislature and see if there's some interest in it. But I just want to know what the mechanisms are behind it before I have any other conversations.
Perfect. And yes, as you were just talking, I got a ping from our AD of security saying, yes, it would be manual, but we absolutely would track that internally and can get that roll up.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, I'm going to turn it over to Chris. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Ramirez, Commissioners, Director Wells. As the chair said, we do have a lot of rules to go through today, so bear with me. We've got 3 on the agenda today. We have 2 regulations that we're proposing, and then the others are related to the bill that Matt just mentioned, House Bill 3115. So first up, we have courier service regulations. So for those in our audience who aren't familiar, couriers are a third-party business that facilitates ticket orders for their customers. So they will purchase a physical ticket from an authorized Oregon lottery retailer in the state of Oregon, and then they hold the ticket on behalf of their customer until results are determined. We have discussed couriers with the commission over the years. We have had couriers in Oregon for more than a decade, but recently the number of couriers has increased in Oregon, specifically those who are selling internationally. As we explain in more details in the memo in your meeting materials, in order to ensure our ticket sales comply with national draw game rules and applicable gambling laws, Director Wells has recommended rules that establish a regulatory framework for retailers who choose to work with a courier service. Under the proposed rules, the retailer would need to notify lottery in writing about the relationship with the courier and make certain agreements, including to verify that the courier follows the best practices that are outlined in the rule, which include preventing ticket sales to customers who are under 18, preventing sales to persons who are physically outside the state of Oregon or on tribal lands at the time of purchase, securely storing tickets held on behalf of customers, and taking reasonable steps to protect the personal financial information of customers. While the rules have a fiscal impact in the short term, we do believe they're necessary to maintain good standing with Powerball and Mega Millions and ensure our ticket sales are compliant with applicable laws. These rules do put us in line with several other state lotteries who have regulations regarding couriers that are similar to the ones we're proposing today. A couple weeks ago, we did start some preliminary outreach to those small number of retailers who will be most impacted by these changes. We've also notified legislators, media, as well as national and international industry groups who are interested in courier regulations. We'll be accepting comments on the rules through the month of August. So if anyone in our audience is interested, they can refer to the meeting materials on how to submit comment to the lottery and the commission. If they have questions about that, they can contact me. My information is in the meeting materials. And then we're going to plan to come back to you with these in September. So are there any questions or comments before we move on?
I do have a question for you. One of the things in reading through the rules, I look to try and reduce administrative burden for small businesses. And so my broad question is, are the rules and regulations listed in Section 3 of the Courier Services Minimum Standards, are those the same for retailers? Some of them are very prescriptive, like the type of safe that they have to have, and that the tickets have to be kept for 30 days. So just looking for, are they the same as for retailers? And looking to see if there's a way that we can ensure that we've got reduced administrative burden on our retailers for doing that. I get some of the other things in there, the indemnification clauses, some of the non-affiliation verbiage, all that makes sense. I'm just looking for particularly that Section 3 side of things. And is there a way that we can reduce administrative burden? And even is that a concern for the retailers? I mean, if retailers come back in the process, they go, yeah, we're good, no issues, within any concerns I have or will be satisfied then.
So Mike, did you want to jump in? I can say from my perspective, but so I would say that there's sort of been emerging best practices around couriers, and we really borrowed from those. So some of these are very similar, as you'll see in other states. So a lot of our couriers who are already operating there are familiar with these sort of regulations. We also, for the retailers, we created like a form so that the retailer is just required to sort of verify with the courier, like, do you meet this? Check. So we don't want our retailer, like, you know, buying the right safe model or whatever, that we want the courier to attest to the retailer that they are following these practices, and it would be compliance based. But I think we are open to public comment on whether these are, you know, overly burdensome. I think the fundamentals are for us the location and age verification and the ticket storage. And so we tried to ease up on the rest of that, but
yeah, Commissioner Conrad, I think I would also just add to that no, these rules are different than other non-courier related retailers. So there are going to be differentiations. You know, a courier is actually actively holding all of those ticket orders that they've taken. Where a standard retailer, they're handing it across the counter to you when you come in to buy your ticket. So they don't physically hold those tickets, where a courier service is possessing those tickets for a long a period of time. And so some of those expectations would be different for a courier business. And since we do not have a direct relationship with a courier, it is through our retailer that we would expect that they ensure that that courier business that they've entered into a third-party relationship with is following these provisions.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for all this work. I just wanted to mention there's something that really struck me that I'm thinking about. I know we're required to do a fiscal and economic impact analysis when you're drafting rules, but there's also the cost of not doing something, which would impact the lottery's ability to participate in some games, as well as some costs that you can't really calculate in terms of finance. And so I really appreciated that information, but also just wanted to say that that's something I'm thinking about.
Did you have anything else, Chris? Or was that it?
That's it on couriers, but we have
Okay.
more. Are we ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the next rule is regarding bulk ticket purchases. We're proposing a rule that would prohibit bulk purchases, which is defined as purchasing more than 50,000 tickets in the same game, or more than 50,000 unique number combinations in a single drawing. And so the real impetus for this change is some incidents that have happened in other jurisdictions where a group of folks conspired to purchase all or most of the tickets in a game or drawing. So the most high-profile case was in Texas, where they purchased 26 million unique number combinations to secure a $98 million jackpot. Due to the very strong negative public reaction to these schemes when they come to light, some state lotteries are taking steps to make sure these can't happen in their jurisdictions. Here at the lottery, we do have internal control over our equipment and inventory. So I don't think it would be easy to do this here without our knowledge, but nevertheless, as a further deterrent, we're recommending this rule that would prohibit these purchases without pre-approval from the director and the commission. This would clearly state our position and would allow us to deny prize payment if this was able to occur here in Oregon. As with the other rules, these are open for comment through the month of August, and I will report back to you in September. But do you have any questions on these before we move on? Commissioner Conrad?
I do. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Just two questions. The first one is why is 50,000 the bright line? And then the other part of that, in reading through it, in section 4, the word that's used is working. People work individually or groups working together. I'm just curious about, is there a legal definition of what working is? So again, going back to the criminal side of it, is conspiracy a better word? Is there something there that why working is that right verb? Is that going to create any issues down the line?
Good comments. I think to the threshold amount, I think we wanted to have something that was high enough to capture the draw game, but also low enough to capture scratch games, but also at a level that wouldn't affect the average lottery player, right? So it'd be kind of weird for an average player to buy more than 50,000 tickets. So we thought that was sort of a fair starting place to cover both the scratch schemes and the drawing schemes, although I think we're open to comment on whether that's the right amount. Arizona Lottery just adopted a similar rule, and they also had the 50,000 threshold. So yeah, that's sort of how we got there. As for working with I think Mike and I were looking at some other rules that were using different phrasing for these they're sort of investors or syndicates, or what are they called? So we can talk to DOJ too about whether we've captured the right language to have because usually these require sort of multiple people, obviously, because you need to buy a lot of tickets in a short time period. So we can ask if we've got that language right.
I appreciate that. I mean, 'cause working in layman's terms, it is the right word, but again, the legality side of it, and is that the legal definition that's defensible in court? Because some of the other side of this, I mean, 50,000 threshold, somebody's going to buy 49,999. What happens at that point? Nothing? Or is there some other subjective way that people working and coordinating together for this endeavor, with whatever the threshold ends up being, what's going to happen in that? And is there anything down the road where they get monitored, they get tracked, whatever that conspiracy looks like? Because undoubtedly that's going to happen at some point in time.
I don't pretend to be an attorney and would never even consider giving legal advice, but I also am a pretty good wordsmith, and the term that comes to my mind for possible consideration is either working with or working in conjunction or acting in conjunction with, something like that might be considered. And again, I don't know if that would be better, worse, or whatever. So there's that as thrown into the hat for consideration.
Thanks. Yeah, that's good feedback. These are just proposals at this point, so we appreciate your comments. Anything else on that one? We have one more to go, guys. We're almost done, but all right. So the last one pertains to House Bill 3115, which Matt just told you about. So to reiterate, this does prohibit that discounting practice where you're buying tickets at a discount. It also prohibits the deduction. I think Commissioner Weller will be happy about that. Prohibits the deduction of the price paid for these tickets off your Oregon income taxes. And then through an unrelated amendment, it also allows winners to remain anonymous. So to implement the bill, which takes effect September 27th, we have pretty straightforward rule changes that clarify a ticket or video lottery cash slip that we determine that was bought or sold or claimed in violation of the bill is invalid for prize payment and would be confiscated, returned to the public purpose. And then for the winner anonymity, we do have a rule on disclosure of winner information. So that's updated to align with the bill, which allows the winner to keep their name and address confidential. And then, as Matt said, we do have several processes going on internally. This does affect several departments here at Lottery, so we will have a new prize claim form process, new security procedures, and then we're also doing communication out to players, internal staff, retailers, as well as the legislators who wrote the bill and the media who have reported on it. And like Matt said, I think we're in good shape to have these rules and procedures in place by September 27th, which is the effective date of the law. So as with all the rules I've talked about today, they are open for public comment and they are provided in the meeting materials if people want to read the rules and submit comment to the commission. Otherwise, I'm happy to talk about these more, but otherwise that is all I have on the rules for you this month.
Thank you. Turn it over to Director Wells for procurement recommendation.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Ramirez. If I could take a moment to just address something regarding the rules. I have heard repeatedly since we announced this proposed rule change regarding couriers, why now? Why regulate them now when couriers have operated in Oregon without oversight for so many years? And I think that's a fair question and one I really wanted to address. Historically, Oregon Lottery has maintained a very neutral stance on couriers. This is in part because we only had a few couriers operating in Oregon, and generally they followed industry norms. We Lottery really kept an arm's length relationship with them. We communicated with our retailers. We did not have communications with couriers. If something was wrong, we discussed that with the courier, or excuse me, with the retailer directly, and relied on the retailer to manage that relationship. That said, many in the broader lottery community, so nationally, have long voiced concerns over Oregon's very permissive approach to couriers in this state, and it's been very controversial for many, many years. More recently, the landscape has really changed when it comes to couriers. We have seen a rise in the number of couriers, an expansion in the types of lottery products the couriers are selling, and have noticed a decline in the transparency of those courier services. Over the past year, we've received formal concerns from both national and international lottery partners, which has raised some very significant risks to some key relationships, and ones that we can't lose. Relationships that are important to the financial stability of this organization. We have also witnessed the consequences of regulatory gaps in other lotteries, other jurisdictions, formidably Texas, and we can see the results of what happens when there weren't regulations. So it was pretty clear to the executive leadership team here that these developments, as we watched this happening, that we needed some type of action. And in response, we've spent a significant period of time going through a deliberate process and consulting with the industry, looking at legal and regulatory analysis. What can we do? What should we do? What's possible? We've looked at revenue impacts and assessed that. We've done some stakeholder engagement, and obviously, to bring this forth, a lot of approvals that we've had to go through with our stakeholders to get to this point. We definitely understand the economic implications for both retail, those retailers that are partnering with courier services, as well as we understand the impact to the state of Oregon, right? As we've already mentioned, and you see in there is a revenue impact, and something that is hard for any of us to stomach, but something that we know needs to be thought through, and very carefully thought through. I'm pleased to share that the proposed rules have already received support from our industry partners. They're very supportive of this change. But more importantly, what I think we need to remember is that these changes reinforce our constitutional and statutory mandate to ensure fairness, integrity, and security in all Oregon lottery operations. And that is something we take very seriously here at Lottery. I know you do as well. And that is really how we ended up at this point. So that's the why now, and why has this gone on. That's just a little bit of background that I think is probably not well spelled out in some of the materials, and I felt like it was important to address. Obviously, this is a rulemaking process. Obviously, we're taking comment. There could likely be change to what's been presented. As Commissioner Conrad, have you brought up, there's probably some revisions to this that we can look at. So it's going to take thoughtful consideration on your part as we move through this process, but wanted to provide a little bit of that detail and some background before we moved on. So thank you for that.
Mike, if I could interrupt your flow for a quick second, I just want to thank you for keeping us apprised of all the motives and rationale behind this process, so that we're not getting surprised with something out of the blue. And so the credit to you and to your staff for staying on top of all the work that you guys did behind the scenes as this whole scenario has been evolving, and it's coming out now, as you mentioned. But I just want to say thank you for what you and your staff have done. You've done a fabulous job. And as a new commissioner, I appreciate all the background information you've provided.
Thank you, Commissioner Conrad. Yeah, like I've said, right, this is a big change. We recognize it's a big change and wanted to follow the process and ensure that everybody has as much information as possible. So thank you. All right, moving on to the major procurement. In your meeting packet today, you'll find my recommendations to move forward with a major procurement involving Brightstar Global Solutions Corp. This is a name you probably haven't heard yet. They were formerly known as IGT, and they have gone through some changes. So this is their new corporate name after some restructuring. This initiative will consolidate our current mobile application contracts into a single comprehensive agreement covering development, support, future enhancements, all under one vendor. The project will begin with a letter of intent, launching a 10-week analysis phase. During that time, Brightstar will collaborate with the lottery to define the technical and business requirements for a new convenience mobile application. If we choose to proceed, there would be a master service agreement to follow, outlining implementation, ongoing support, and future development of that application. This procurement is designed to streamline operations, reduce administrative complexity, and enhance the customer experience, particularly through the addition of digital claims and payments, which is what we're trying to achieve with the new application. It also positions the lottery for future innovation and would align with our long-term strategic goals by providing us more flexibility in our application and better structure in our contract. So with that, I would ask again for your approval with this major procurement.
I just had a quick question to clarify what we're actually approving. So it talks about an analysis phase, and then we'll make a determination whether to proceed. Are we approving today to start the process to where you'll do that analysis phase and then it'll come back to the commission again when you want to actually move forward? Or could you just clarify what we're signing up for today?
Yes, it's both, right? So to find the best speed in this, because we would like to get this application launched in this fiscal year if possible. So we have to start that analysis phase before we enter in the full contract. So exactly how you spelled it out is what we're looking for. So we need to enter into this phase. We need your approval to do that. And then we would come back for final approval to enter in the full contract.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Any other questions or comments from the commission? Is there a motion to approve the major procurement?
I move the Oregon State Lottery Commission authorize the director of the Oregon Lottery to enter into a major procurement with Brightstar Global Solutions Corporation for the development and purchase of the mobile app as presented today.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Conrad,
Aye.
Commissioner Geller, Commissioner Weller,
Aye.
Chair Ramirez.
Aye. For the record, the motion has passed. Now let's move on to staff updates.
Noel, I think you're up with financial updates first.
Thank you, Chair Ramirez, Commissioners, and Director Wells. For the record, my name is Noel Coombs, Data Scientist at the Oregon Lottery. Before going into the slides of our sales figures, just a couple quick things to note that negatively impacted sales comparisons between this quarter and the same quarter last fiscal year. We're still experiencing some of the tail end of the tax return season that was smaller this year due to the kicker compared to last year. This year, in this quarter, we had smaller jackpot prize pools across the Mega Millions and Powerball games. Total advertised Powerball jackpots were down 45.5% from the same period last year, and Mega Millions was down 33.6% from the same period last year. And that's the cumulative jackpot amounts. Megabucks jackpot totals were increased by 13%. And then finally, we're continuing to see sales impacts, very likely due to the Medford Casino where we can clearly see Jackson County sales decreases. Could you go into the first slide, Sar? Thank you very much. So this slide shows Lottery's fourth quarter fiscal year 2025 product sales performance. Sales performance is compared to the same period last year, which is the FY24 columns, and then also to the dashed line values, which reflect forecast totals from the March 2025 forecast, which was the forecast available immediately preceding this quarter. In the third quarter, the lottery generated $353.9 million in net revenue across all products, compared to Q4 2024's net revenue of $367.1 million. Current quarter net sales were 3.6% lower than that value from last year. Relative to the March forecast of $386.1 million, current quarter sales were 8.3% down. Then the graphs on the right side reflect expected transfers from the sales activity. And these sales resulted in expected transfers of $221.3 million this quarter, a 4.4% decrease from the same period last year, and a 9% decrease relative to the expected transfers from sales activity from the March forecast. Next slide, please, Sar. Unless there's any questions, please feel free to interrupt me at any time. Okay. And then this slide structured the exact same as the previous one, except this reflects full year, fiscal year 2025. These same kind of comparisons, FY24 column versus in this case, the forecast that the dashed line represents is the June 2024 forecast, as that was the forecast that preceded the entire fiscal period that we're reporting on here. The lottery generated $1,412.7 million, or excuse me, $1,412 million in net revenue across all products, a 2.1% decrease compared to the same period in fiscal year 2024, and a 4.8% decrease relative to the June forecast made prior to the start of the fiscal year. In terms of the expected transfers from that sales activity, the lottery generated $886.9 million, which is 2.8% lower than the same period last year and 4.9% lower than expected by the June 2024 forecast. Next slide, please, Sar, unless there's any questions. And then this slide shows year-to-date gross revenues, net revenues, and prize expense costs per product. Total year-to-date gross revenue across all products was $17.1 billion, with video lottery making up 92.4% of all gross revenues and 82.4% of all net revenue. Across all products, 91.8% of gross revenue went towards prize expense. Next slide, please, Sar. And then finally, the slide just shows the net revenue sales trend over the entire biennium. In previous quarters, it would have showed that some of the rest of the biennium were forecasted values, but as now we have completed the biennium, it's just all actuals the entire way through. And does anyone have any questions? All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. And on to the next person.
Good morning, Chair Ramirez, Commissioners, Director Wells. For the record, my name is Tina Erickson, and I am the manager over the lottery product portfolio. So today, just highlights for our scratch-its for the fourth quarter. Net revenue was $13.1 million, so we did see an increase of over 6% in that space. As you can see, our top sellers still are trending to be the $10, $20, and the $30 price points. And our 40th anniversary game has done very well. It is ranked #1, I think, over the last 26 weeks. So it's an engaging product for our players. And really similar to what Noel had already shared was that by year end, we saw about a 7% increase in the scratch space. Again, this is net revenue that we're looking at. So we're taking in sales and removing the prizes there. Next slide, please, Sar. Jackpot games, again, always are influenced by our jackpot amounts, and Keno is as well because it does have that 8-spot rolling jackpot. So this may kind of tell you a story that these are really underperforming, but all jurisdictions are encountering, declines in the sales in Powerball and Mega Millions, but we aren't as low as some. We're kind of in the middle of the pack there. And again, we know when you have those high jackpots, it's hard to compare, especially when we don't have those happening this last quarter. In general, as a total for jackpot games in Keno, we had over $100 million in net revenue in this space. So again, these products still, are viable. They have this nice little niche that our customers like, and they get excited about, seeing jackpot amounts roll. But definitely seeing some decline in general. Megabucks and Keno, they just had minor decline. And again, the national games, I'm hopeful that we will see a bounce back. And that is all I have. Are there any questions? All right, Star.
Okay, thank you, Tina. Chairman Ramirez, Commissioners, Director Wells, good morning. For the record, my name is Sar Richards. I am the Video Gaming Product Manager here at the Lottery, and will give this quarter's update. Tell myself next slide. All right, well, as touched on earlier, video product for the quarter was down 5.6% compared to fourth quarter previous fiscal year. For the year, we ended down about 2.2%. Noel touched on some of the reasons for that, including the kicker. We're also seeing some macroeconomic headwinds. I think everybody's seeing the layoffs like at Intel, concerns over tariffs, and all that impacts consumer spending. And unfortunately, that often results in lower video lottery revenue. But what are we doing about that is, first, we're getting rid of the E20s at a really great rate. Tech services and video support, the two teams responsible for that, are actually 10 months ahead of schedule. We'll be able to get the last of the E20s out in August before we start rolling out the Sierra that Director Wells mentioned earlier. We're also kind of going back to what Director Wells has been stressing, going back to the fundamentals. Rich Little Piggies is a fun game, and that's what we want to do, is try and bring that entertainment value back to our players so they can have a good time on the games. It's actually also resulted in Rich Little Piggies being the #1 game on the new terminal Cascada and 4th overall in net revenue per day per VLT. So it's a success story as far as the game, even in these economic times. And then we touched on it before, but Beaver State Bonus Bonanza is coming out this fall. It'll go out the same weekend as the game between OSU and U of O, and then statewide right after that. And it's another game that's really focused on the entertainment value. It's still a good game. It'll do well for players, retailers, and lottery, but more of that focus on having fun and entertainment. And then, as Director Willis talked about, Sierra, we got our first delivery this week, and it went extraordinarily well for deliveries. The terminals are in great shape. Training starts next week. And then at the end of August, we'll roll into field trial. And as Director Willis mentioned earlier, if everything goes really well, we should begin statewide deployment in September. As always, I know I zipped through that. Any questions on video?
Yeah, Sar, one simple question. When do my ducks get equal opportunity on this?
You asked that last time, and the vendors often listen to these meetings, and they heard too. So we are looking at what we can do to get a duck game going. So yes, a duck-related game is forthcoming. I don't know exactly when, but that's definitely something we're working on. Going back to that.
Always an interesting perspective, given Commissioner Weller's question. My question is the underlying assumption that the U of O OSU football game is not going to be exciting in and of itself, and that we have to have all these periphery things in order to make it exciting? Is that a commentary on the OSU football team on your side, Sarah?
Wow, as an OSU alum, I won't grab that bullet directly, but yeah, no, I think it's going to be a fun game, and I think when people get done, they're going to continue that fun after the game, and it's always a good time to celebrate Oregon. So that's what Beaver State's going to be out there, because at the end of the day, we're all Beaver State people, Ducks and Beavs under the Oregon flag. So that's kind of the goal, is to build on that tremendous fun that should be in that football game. No, I think it's going to be a great game.
I hope so. I appreciate that. Actually, I do have a serious question.
Yeah, of course.
If you can remind me, what is the relationship between video lottery and the mobile app, given that we just voted on the procurement process for the mobile app. Should we continue, and if the mobile app is rolled out over this next fiscal year, a year from now, should we see these video lottery numbers decreasing, but should we expect it to be decreasing because we're going to have the mobile app whenever that actually goes live?
Are you asking, will the app impact video lottery play or revenue?
Correct. Do they compete? Is the video lottery, some of the folks playing the video lottery now going to transition over to the mobile app once that gets up and going? I'm just trying to set my expectations for future numbers.
I don't know all the details of the video app. I don't believe it's going to be offering video lottery type games on it. I think it's going to, and I'll let Director Wells comment on that because I don't want to speak from ignorance.
Yeah, no, there should not be impact like that. Really, the only tie from our mobile app with video lottery would be that video lottery claim slips. So the slip that they get when they win, they would be able to digitally claim that prize. That's going to be the only link. We are not authorized to offer any type of iLottery solution. So video lottery like gaming on an application, that is not something that's authorized at this point for us to offer. So you won't see a transition of video lottery style play to the app. It will be generally our convenience app with the new feature of digital claims and payments.
Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on video before I hand it off to Carrie on sports? All right, hearing none, I will turn over to Carrie.
Morning, Chair, Commissioners, Director Wells. For the record, my name is Carrie Hemphill. I am the sports betting product manager here at the Oregon Lottery, and I am here to give you the sports betting product update for the last quarter. Let me go forward on the slides, Barb. There we go. I do have Ducks and Beavers colors here, so we're representing both of those. Quarter four for 2025 saw a slight increase in volume over quarter three, as turnover came in at $221 million on excellent margins, and we saw gross gaming revenue at over $26 million, as reflected on our monthly performance reports. Product volume growth overall, when you do a year-over-year comparison, was similar to last year for Q4. But revenue growth was outstanding as margins improved significantly over last year. A focus by our partner DraftKings Sportsbook of promoting higher level margin parlay business over singles bets is helping drive the growth that we see in the quarter. Year-over-year comparisons, you'll see those in the green. We've got positive in all four categories for a number of bets. Turnover, GGR, and unique active players. So that's exciting. Basketball and baseball were our primary sports of the quarter. Those two sports categories made up of 62% of the total dollars wagered within last quarter and 67% of our revenue. Basketball led the way. We had over $72 million bet this last quarter on basketball total bets. And we saw a GGR of $11 million with that. The NBA playoffs and the finals fell in the quarter, and it pushed heavy interest in the league through the end of June. This year's finals, though, for NBA, the matchup had a per game interest of pretty flat with last year. I think the two teams weren't as exciting, so the interest lacked a little bit. But overall turnover was up because the series had 7 games this year, as opposed to last year, we only had 5 games. So those 2 extra games really boosted the numbers a little bit. Baseball performed exceptionally well and continues to do it early in the season. We're seeing turnover numbers growing slowly, but gross gaming revenue, just like the rest of it, is posting a huge increase. So while our number of dollars wagered in the quarter is kind of flat, slight growth, revenue is really growing. We have a 68% increase in baseball year over year. And I would attribute that to favorable results, but also, again, higher margin parlay business, which is found a lot in baseball, such as the micro wagers, like the next pitch, next at bat, what's going to happen. Those really increase, and putting those into a parlay helps increase numbers. The parlay business in baseball jumped from over 34% last year to over 41% this year alone. So folks are really liking to wager on parlays. Table tennis bounced back in the quarter, posting solid numbers. We saw a flattening in Q3 because we had a third-party data outage that kind of affected the whole program of table tennis across the country. That seems to have subsided, and the growth numbers are trending positive now. And we are seeing kind of the same thing with just our regular other primary sports, such as soccer, tennis, MMA. All of those are seeing slight increases or somewhat flat numbers of turnover overall. But again, gross gaming revenue is up 15% if you combo all those together. And then just at the registrations for the quarter, so you'll see on the slide, we saw almost a 9,500 new customers come into the sports book just in the last 3 months. And this is a decrease when you're looking at numbers from last year, year over year, just slightly. But MMA and boxing are bringing in good numbers. We just had a huge MMA event last week, so that's not reflected in these new customers. That will be reflected next quarter update, and that is definitely pushing those. It's kind of the timing of when those events happen to give our numbers. We are starting to see year over year comparisons, though, in monthly registration numbers slow a little bit, maybe a slight decline here and there. Usually with this, we are still seeing a minimal variance, though. If it is on a negative, it's not a big variance. And that's a good indicator, though, that the product is, even though it's maturing, market saturation is always a concern, but the performance remains steady and users are still interested, and the product is stable. So still considering that a positive trend overall. And that's the sports update for the quarter. We're looking ahead at regular baseball season, an exciting NFL season coming up in just over a month, and a bunch of UFC matches and things. So we'll have a very exciting next couple of months. Any questions? Great. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to open up the floor for any commissioner communications or any other business. Commissioner Geller?
Yeah, I just wanted to share with the other commissioners that I had an exchange with the Lottery Commission communications staff. I was really curious about one of the things that I did when I was researching how to use my public service hours and looking at this commission as a possible option was I learned that 2 sort of transformative projects in my neighborhood had been partially built by lottery-backed bonds. And so I'm just, I'm thinking a lot about, I think the communication staff does a really nice work and thoughtful. But I also think as commissioners, as a commissioner, I'm thinking about when I'm having informal conversations with people about how I'm using my time, it's actually really hard for people to understand various revenue streams and how things are paid for. And so I just really appreciate the work that we're doing and the commission that the lottery's doing, and thinking a lot about, how I can participate in communicating that good, because I think there's a lot of room for additional understanding. So.
There are no other comments. This concludes today's meeting of the Oregon State Lottery Commission. The next meeting is scheduled on Friday, August 29th at 10 a.m. Thank you for all for attending today's meeting. The meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Commissioners.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.